Well, Chris, a lot of the fans wanted the truth, and they got El Grande Americano instead in Money in the Bank, joining Andrade, Penta, Solo Sikoa, LA Knight, and Seth Rollins. What do you think about El Grande being there? Should we talk about him as a possible winner? We wrongly discounted Jey Uso as a Royal Rumble winner. I refer to that all the time. It set the it set the standard for not being too sure about any outcome.
It's funny. In most cases, I would say no, but Money in the Bank is one of those stipulations where it actually could work out because he could have that briefcase for 6, 7, 8 months and not really be involved and pretend to maybe run in and get foiled by one of his many foes, because he has quite a few. So the way WWE is doing things nowadays, I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah. What do you make of it? I mean, honestly, like it doesn't have to win, but why is he in this match? Obviously Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso against John Cena and Logan Paul. That's a nice match for Money in the Bank. But I mean, if CM Punk or even arguably AJ Styles is in that match, I mean, that's better. It's like more marquee. So why is El Grande in this one?
I think partially, I don't know. There may be something going on. Of course, Chad Gable is wrestling on the AAA NXT World Collide show.
Very controversial accusation by Cole that he's doing double duty Saturday. Very controversial.
I think, for me, I think they want to have a comedy figure in there or something of people can laugh at. I don't think Money in the Bank, this type of match, should have it, and they have so many other credible people that could be in it. But I guess they're not going to win, so you might as well have El Grande Americano in it. But I could have picked maybe 10 other people that probably would have suited it better.
So tell me about your thoughts on the field, and is there one obvious winner, a couple obvious winners, potential winners in the men's Money in the Bank now that we have the full lineup in front of us?
Seth Rollins is the obvious favorite. I think they're obviously talking about that, and even Sami Zayn wanting CM Punk to win because he's worried that Seth Rollins is going to win. I could see Solo Sikoa as a dark horse only because he's building a stable and he could be someone who could have it and have people maybe attack the champion. Mm-hmm. On paper, those two are the only ones I could really see as possible. Andrade is someone who was kind of out of the mix for a while and suddenly came in this match. I think it's very rare for a babyface to have a Money in the Bank. LA Knight and Penta, even Andrade, seem more like honorable wrestlers who'd want to,
schedule it.
Yeah, win Money in the Bank and schedule it, which I don't think they're going to have. And, I guess from that list, really, El Grande Americano is one of the favorites because it's something that he could string along for a good portion of the year if he did win. So I guess the three favorites are Seth Rollins, Solo Sikoa, and El Grande Americano.
I'll throw a chat comment in here. Goodfellow1422 says, the main event winner surprised me. I'm going to double down. Karrion Kross takes out El Grande and enters into Money in the Bank. I hoped it would happen this week. It did not. I don't think he will wrestle twice in that day. So I guess he's saying that Kross is going to come out dressed in El Grande gear in Money in the Bank. I don't know. That's does that, what do you think of that, Chris?
Yeah, I find that to be, well, because technically he's not wrestling twice. Chad Gable's wrestling on the NXT AAA show, and El Grande Americano, who are not the same person, will be wrestling at Money in the Bank.
Yeah.
I don't see that. I think, I'm someone I feel like Money in the Bank has had its sell-by date. It popped on my Facebook a few weeks ago when they did the first Money in the Bank, and 4 of the 6 people in it were in AEW. So it's been around for 20 years. Every independent promotion I watch seems to have some variant of Money in the Bank, and it just leads to very odd booking things. I'm just personally tired of it, I guess.
Well, Azan White says El Grande Americano is living the dream. Yes, indeed. Kyle Fassel in the chat says, my thought was the Money in the Bank match is where Grande gets unmasked. They could certainly do an angle there. But there is some disappointment, and I understand it. This is a weak Money in the Bank men's field in a lot of ways. And it is kind of what WWE does now. They're spreading things out. Their PLEs are shorter generally, unless it's a big brand like Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam. And they figure Cody Rhodes' first match since WrestleMania on a PLE, teaming with Jey Uso, John Cena, one of his rare matches, teaming up with Logan Paul. They think that's enough. But it's not the strongest lineup. And so Dwayne Carpenter in the chat said, I hated the main event outcome. I'm tired of the WWF leaving out their star power for PLE main events. It's a Money in the Bank match. Put the star power in the match. No one has to eat a pin in that match. Why, Chris, do you think WWE is doing this? I mean, if you don't, it's not elimination. Everybody doesn't have to lose who's in it. And I mean, are they just going, we got our guaranteed money from Peacock. People are going to watch or not watch, but we think they'll watch because it's not any extra money. They know the peak growth in people subscribing to Peacock is going to come for WrestleMania, SummerSlam, the Rumble. I mean, I'm answering my own question to a degree more in the sense of where is their mindset at? They don't think they have to put the big stars out there in big matches and have them, especially if they have something planned. Again, for the sake of argument, El Grande Americano winning, I don't think they want CM Punk in the match that El Grande wins. It kind of demeans him to not succeed in that context. So I think that's her mindset. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think they are thinking of other matches down the line that are bigger than this Money in the Bank match. When CM Punk gets his eventual shot at the title, or someone like Sami Zayn. Gunther is already wrestling Jey Uso on next Monday's Raw. On the SmackDown side, you have the eventual Cody Rhodes versus John Cena match, as well as other people. Even someone like AJ Styles against John Cena seems more interesting than some of the folks with the Money in the Bank. I think it's one of those things where they're like, we want to have a good, credible match that people will enjoy. And I think the people they have in the match will provide that for the most part. Mm-hmm. But they have other bigger feuds and storylines down the line that I think are more important that they don't want to really waste in this match. And
it is a key point. There's talent in this match. I mean, Seth Rollins is a big deal. He's the singular standout star in this match. Penta's at a certain level, but not at Seth's level, and I don't think he's going to get there, but he's the second biggest star in this match. Solo has been diminished, but there's probably going to be, some storyline fallout either during the match or afterwards regarding that. LA Knight, obviously very popular. But, Andrade, El Grande / Chad Gable, and Penta, along with Seth, are really talented wrestlers who fit this style of match. So, I mean, it should be good. Obviously, a lot of people tune in. They want to see good wrestling, not just star power with Seth, and then a pretty big drop-off after that. And there's no guarantee Seth wins. But, I mean, that's the story WWE's telling is, who will stop this path that Seth is on to regain control. And they're talking about it like, Democrats did it before Election Day, not to go to politics, but like, if it was Sami was saying, like, if Seth wins, it'll never be the same around here. This is a world you won't recognize. It's going to be awful. I guess both sides say that about politics. Sometimes it's more true than others. If the other side wins, and they're talking about that with Seth, which, I mean, they're not super specific about what that means, but it creates sort of this ominous, dark cloud if Seth wins. But from a match quality standpoint, I mean, Solo and LA Knight are not great in this style match, but everybody else is, and they'll probably have their moments too. So, Chris, just talk about what you expect action-wise in this.
Yeah, I expect there to be good action. I mean, they're 2 Money in the Bank matches, so I know they will probably spread out some of the crazy spots. I think that's part of it too. Not that you want anyone to get injured, but if someone here was injured, it may not take something away from a future storyline. I think, again, the folks in the ring, in the match, will provide good action. I think, as something that plagued today's show, people will watch Money in the Bank waiting for the interference, whether it be from Jacob Fatu or CM Punk or someone returning or Rey Fenix, perhaps. And I think that might be enough to also make the match exciting, to see who might run in and who might get thwarted. So, yeah, I think it'll be, as I said, good action on Saturday. I believe it's Saturday. Good action. Good action. I'm used to pay-per-views being on Sunday. I have to move on from that. Good action on Saturday, but again, not something that will burn out storylines in the future.
All right, so we got more chat comments about the possibility of Seth winning, pro and con, likely, unlikely. We'll get to that in a second, along with some other things. Let's pause the conversation, just quickly introduce the show and ourselves. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Monday, June 2nd, 2025. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter and the website PWTorch.com, which features my live coverage of Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown in written format, along with Saturday's Money in the Bank and PLEs and pay-per-views in general. We have flashbacks from 10, 15, 20, even 30 years ago on the site for our TV reports, along with columns you won't find anywhere else, thoughtful pieces, analyzing and breaking down the business with different formats like the Feud Tracker, Hits and Misses, and more. Hope you're checking that out. We also have news. I had a story up on R-Truth, who we'll talk about soon. R-Truth, not released by WWE. The story getting blown a little out of proportion, but we'll get. Well, I don't know. I mean, in my opinion, there's a bit of more of a reaction than I think is merited in this case. I got into that in my report at PWTorch.com, so check that out. But I'll talk about it here in a bit too. In addition to writing on the website and in the newsletter, I also host podcasts, including this one, the Wade Keller Post Show. We're live after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night, within minutes after those three shows end. We have a rotation of co-hosts for those shows. We also have, and we stream that, by the way, live on our PW Torch YouTube channel, and then distribute it to the masses on our podcast feed. Search Wade Keller on your podcast app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, Android or iOS on your app, or stream them from our website, PWTorch.com. Search Wade Keller and subscribe. The red logo show are the post shows, and the blue logo show is our flagship, our pay-per-view previews, interviews, interview classics, other special things we put up, like media Q&As, like with Tony Khan, and more on that feed. So search Wade Keller, subscribe to both, and while you're at it, search PW Torch and subscribe to the PW Torch Daily Cast feed and the PW Torch VIP free sample feed. There's 4 free feeds. 2 under Wade Keller, 2 under PW Torch. Subscribe to them all and catch all of our free content. You can also become a VIP member and get a commercial-free version of those shows, and then a bunch of VIP-exclusive podcasts. With a full VIP membership, you unlock 35-plus years of archives. You get an ad-free website and more. Full details at pwtorch.com/govip. But we're here to talk about tonight's episode of Monday Night Raw, and there are many ways you can join us. One is as a caller on the show. So if you are a VIP member or Patreon supporter, you can find the link to that in my TV report on pwtorchvip.com or on the Patreon page. So look for that if you want to join us in conversation. You can also email us, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. We'll be monitoring the inbox as the show progresses. JB, as usual, is at the top of the queue in the mailbag, and then you can also join us in the chat if you're watching us live on YouTube. And we have great conversation, great contributions from our listeners who watch us live on YouTube, and we will always read their comments on the air because the vast majority of you listen to us on the audio side. We've been building up that audience for 15 plus years, and we don't want to make you ever feel left out. So we'll always read those out loud and credit them to those in the chat. So those are the ways to participate. But most of the conversation is going to be between me and my co-host, Chris Maitland. Welcome to the show once again.
Thank you for having me.
So tell people about your podcast. I mentioned the PW Torch Daily Cast. Tell people about that show in the format. It's part of our lineup where there's a different show each day of the week. It's kind of a different format, different focus with different co-hosts. Tell people about yours.
Sure. I host Wrestling Coast to Coast with my good friend for over 25 years, Justin McClellan. We watch a different show every week, usually of independent wrestling, and discuss it, break it down like Wade and I are doing Raw, or how any other show is broken down from here on PW Torch. Last week, we covered a new promotion out of Poughkeepsie, New York, called Awesome Championship Wrestling, one of the few times that I actually tolerated the "This is awesome" chant. And this week on our show, coming out on Wednesday, we will be covering the Action Dean 2 show, which was put in conjunction with Ring of Honor. We covered Action Dean 1 last year, which took place during WrestleMania weekend in Philadelphia. It's a tribute show to Dean Rasmussen, who passed away a few years ago. This show collaborates Action Wrestling and Ring of Honor. It's available on the Ring of Honor YouTube show, and we're very happy that it was more of an action wrestling show length than an AEW show length, as it was just under 2 hours and not 4.5. But yeah, so we have a lot of shows we're covering over the next several weeks, including Joint Prestige, DPW, West Coast Pro Show a week after, and other stuff going on. Some discussions of WWE ID, where are they now, or not? What has it been so far in the 7-8 months? So yeah, please check us out on Wednesday nights.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Let's pivot back to talking about tonight's episode of Raw. As I noted, the chat had some comments on the possibility of Seth winning. Mark Biscetti says, if Seth doesn't win in this field, he'll look weak. It doesn't matter if he doesn't eat a pin. I made that case. That's why I think, made the case. Maybe that's why CM Punk, for instance, is in it. Sami Zayn's not in it. They don't want, if the story they're telling isn't that they were in a match they could have won and didn't, they'd rather have them just get screwed out of it in a triple threat match and not be in it. But does Seth look bad if he doesn't win this?
Not if he's attacked by Sami Zayn and CM Punk. I think there'll be a reason for him not to win. So yeah. I wouldn't say he'd be weak necessarily, provided that attack takes place. Plus, it's a ladder match where, he could technically, Andrade could throw him through 8 tables or something. So
right. Yeah.
That could help as well.
Goodfella 1422 said Seth winning would be silly. JC Scooby 1976 said Seth better not win Money in the Bank. And Sean Plichta says there are good storylines, and Punk will try to cost Seth. In a general sense, Barry Wood says the briefcase still has value to me. Top contenders don't need it. A lower card player can win the case and be relevant for a while. Well, except Otis, who got screwed. And that's the thing. I mean, Money in the Bank is not the Royal Rumble. It's not it's not every main eventer. A ton of the main eventers are in the field. It sort of had a tradition at one point of being just sort of a random gimmick match with sort of a gimmicky chance to become champion. And then it started to build momentum, pretty quickly over time. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm okay with an unexpected person winning and that becoming their gimmick. Obviously that happens more often than not. It's just so many top people were in the mix right now talking about it and in qualifying matches that I think there's a bit of a letdown with some viewers just based on what people imagined might be the case. If you paid a lot of money to go to Money in the Bank, you want to see more than Seth Rollins and then Penta is the number 2 or LA Knight is the number 2 star in that match. So I get some of the pushback there too. Anything you want to add to that, Chris?
I think there are general issues on what people are paying for when they go to WWE events, but I agree with what you said in relation to Money in the Bank.
Yeah, there you go. Derek Hubbard said, I like having a few dark horses in the Money in the Bank match. Andrade and Gable will make it a better match. The angles will involve Seth and Solo. It's a good mix of action and angles. It makes it a compelling Money in the Bank. So there we are. Okay, I want to talk about R-Truth here because I don't want to forget to do it. Then we'll get to other content. Women's Money in the Bank. We got CJ on hold as a first caller if he sticks with us. But the R-Truth situation, he announced on social media yesterday that he was released. I think technically he's told his wrestling contract will expire and they won't be negotiating to renew it. The framing of it in certain media areas and online, I think it got, it turned into a big thing. I think in part because all the story was framed as if this was some big, crime against a lifer in R-Truth. I asked around people who like Truth and are consider themselves friends of his and advocates for him, kind of were like, well, he's 53. He doesn't wrestle a lot. We don't do house shows. It's kind of time for a Legends contract or ambassador contract. I wrote in my story that, somebody had said maybe WWE should have a different kind of contract for people when they reach the stage of their career where they don't have to go through this storm of negative publicity and fan backlash over it. But, he's 53. He doesn't wrestle a lot. The idea that he would just be, a lock because he's so well liked. Management loves him. He's a great employee, so to speak. Freelance. This was not punishment for him. It just felt like the natural next stage for him in his career. But I don't know that he took it that way. And certainly fans of his didn't. And there was some media reporting that made it seem like, the outrage of the century that a guy who rarely wrestles and just got a really high profile match on NBC and a nice little push who likely would be offered a deal with WWE to stick around, just not at hundreds of thousands of dollars as a wrestler. I don't know. I think it's going against the grain of the last 48 hours or 36 hours of buildup of the story. And I got a report even before Raw went on the air there where we want truth chants. I heard it at least 4 or 5 times during the show, sometimes pretty brief. It got lost a little bit in the mix. And thankfully, WWE's got to be thankful that it got replaced by a chant for a wrestler in a match. So I don't know. I mean, all my reporting indicates this isn't, even friends of his aren't as outraged as the initial framing and media reports that I think stoked a pretty big pushback. So Chris, what's your take on what we heard tonight? WWE's handling of this, my framing of it based on who I'm talking to. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think it was sort of one of those things that I think caught a lot of people off guard, and I think a lot of wrestling fans, media are very honed in on WWE releases for the last several years and what it means. And this isn't even technically a release; it's just a contract expiring that's not being renewed. Mm-hmm. I think the thing that it's one of the things let's talk about the existential problem with WWE now and wrestling as a whole is the elimination of house shows. R-Truth and to a lesser extent Carlito would be great on a house show to like either R-Truth win or Carlito lose to someone you're putting over. It would be really fun for like kids and fans and like the B towns, going back to a different era of wrestling. Mm-hmm. That's not the era of wrestling we're in today. We're in a TV product of wrestling. And it limits who can actually be signed because when you only have so many matches and you're not going to have a lot of matches in the situation of R-Truth or Carlito, I think maybe from a PR perspective, WWE should have talked to him or maybe announced it more as a transition, maybe even had a thing where he had one last angle or a match that everyone was known and it would have been maybe treated a bit differently. But to me also, I feel like if R-Truth always got a good reaction. If he was on the show, he wouldn't have gotten as many chants as if not being on the show. And I think that's part of it with wrestling fans. If you chanted for R-Truth as much as you did over the last 6 months, they probably would have kept him.
Yeah, really. I think WWE could have handled this better. And as you touched on, if I'm interpreting your words correctly, WWE probably should have handled this better and had a sense of the popularity of R-Truth, and that there could be a pushback and put Truth in a position where it didn't feel like he had to post on social media, "Oh, it's been great. Goodbye, everybody. I guess I'll never be seen again." I mean, that kind of the tone of his tweet, while not explicitly saying that, it did feel like, a little bit of a farewell. It's not like he's been a weekly fixture on television. He just happened to be a really good storyline opponent for John Cena last month and had a peak moment there and then lost another match right after that. But, I mean, he comes and goes. And I don't see any reason why he won't appear on Raw. But, I don't know. Well, I'll throw a couple chat comments up about this. Derek Hubbard said, "It's important to note that Truth and Carlito were not fired." Oh, by the way, Carlito also, got similar treatment. You're not going to wrestle full-time for us. We're not giving you a wrestler contract. We're not renewing it. WWE chose not to renew their contracts. I don't see how that is a sin. A 3 to 5 year money deal for cameos? I see the reason they were not renewed. Kyle Fassel said, "I'm excited to see what R-Truth does next. I think there's compelling things for him in AEW or TNA." Now, TNA is sort of WWE at this point, in a way. So if WWE said, "Don't hire him, we want to ice him so we can get him cheap to be an ambassador or a Legends guy and make cameos," unfortunately, TNA's lost their independence with their deal with WWE, so they could probably send word of that. I'm intrigued, and I want to get your thoughts, Chris, on the crowd reaction online, social media, and now you have tonight chants for him before the show and during the show multiple times. If you're Tony Khan, do you pick up the phone and go, "I don't know what they're paying you for a Legends deal, but I'll beat it. I can easily beat it. Let's bring you in"? I mean, Tony's the identity of AEW is not narrow and sports specific like enough to exclude someone like R-Truth being there, and Tony could put him on Dynamite every week and have him do, sort of novelty matches. He could team him with Speedball Mike Bailey and make him tag champs. I mean, honestly, like if I'm Tony, I would think he's probably thinking about it. And if you're R-Truth, it's like, let me show him up. I can still go out and work. Well, anyway, what do you think, Chris?
And for R-Truth, it's a job. So, the salaries have to be taken into account. I don't think, or in my opinion, AEW would do well by him past maybe 2 weeks, because that's been their track record with him, and he's not. AEW struggles with people who aren't going to have the best match, and getting characters over for a long period of time, with a few exceptions. So I could see the novelty with him wearing off very quickly there.
Yes. Oh, the novelty would wear off, but if you're Tony Khan and you want to be the good guy and you think WWE looks like the bad guy for this, it's a move they can make. The downside for Truth is it'd be a short-term payment to perhaps, and I don't know about burning the bridge. I mean, Paul Levesque's job was to burn bridges, in the Hall of Fame era under Vince McMahon. I think they would understand if Truth took more money and went over there. I don't think they're particularly, they're petty, but they're not insecure. I think they can be both of this. They can be petty, but also secure in themselves. They know financially they're in great shape. Their attendance is great. They have a deep roster. They're happy with their top guys. They're happy with who's in the pipeline. They're happy with NXT and their crew there. They're not worried about a tiny little bump that Truth gives AEW. They seem perhaps callously disregarding the goodwill of the fans in terms of some of the decisions they make, in terms of political affiliations, sponsorship, what celebrities, who runs their WrestleMania roast. Either they're blind to it or they just think that they're invulnerable. But still, from a PR standpoint, this is hurting a little. Tony Khan could benefit from it. And then I think they'd probably still welcome Truth back after a run in AEW. But going back to my original point, I think if our Truth shows AEW, he would be giving up what might be a longer-term, nice paycheck to do very little work for years to come. He would put that at risk to go work for AEW for a year or two for a salary. But, I'm not in his head. I don't know if he's, losing sleep and angry and wants to prove he can still do more, or if friends are telling him, hey, you're 53, you weren't used a lot. Let's just take that Legends deal and stay in the family. Derek Hubbard says, when wrestlers are released from a contract, it is legal, but it feels unfair. When someone is not renewed, that's sports, that's contracts. If people do not accept it, they don't understand the dynamic. And clearly WWE is like a lot of corporations. We saw it at HBO Max, Warner Brothers, Discovery. The cost cutting, it's a cutthroat bottom line business now. If cutting a deep library of long tail content on a streaming service isn't going to cost us subscribers compared to all the expense that comes along with keeping all that content, they're going to cut it. If a wrestler isn't earning more money than they're earning for the company, or they think it's taking up TV time that should be going to somebody who has more of a future, they're going to let him go. It is very businesslike. Derek Mitchell with some facts says R-Truth had 2 stints in WWE from 99 to 2001 as K-Quick, and then he returned in 2007 until as of yesterday. Well, so not everyone even liked or is not everyone even liked or well respected doesn't mean you get a guaranteed lifetime contract. And that's the thing. I mean, people get all upset about cutbacks, and it's like, you're not guaranteed a job for life. I mean, you're offering your services to a company, and the company can pay you, or they can choose not to. And there are other places to work. Sometimes the timing of it, like in the early stages of COVID, is certainly worthy of criticism. Sometimes the reason people are released, should be scrutinized on an individual basis. But the notion that everybody should remain an employee for life, or contractor for life, I should say, I mean, that's not how it works. Ozan White said, let R-Truth explore other career opportunities. And Dan says, at a minimum, make him an ambassador, but maybe he didn't want to do that. Sean Plichta says, yes, they didn't renew his contract. It happens. I think they should have renewed it in a certain way, but I understand it. And yeah, I mean, I think having some sort of middle ground type of contract for somebody like that's not just a Legends deal, some hybrid part-time wrestler thing might have been better. Finally, Kyle Fassel just says, I definitely thought Truth was a lifer. He could come back down the road for a Legends deal. Let me see if anybody else added anything while we were chatting about this, since we brought up some new things. It's a business, no matter how unfair it can be, says Sean. And Azan says WWE is a business, not a friendship company. And yeah, so anyway, yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much the gist of it there. Okay, Chris, let's talk about the women's Money in the Bank, because we spent quite a bit of time on the men's Money in the Bank match. We have Stephanie Vaquer qualifying. She joins Rhea Ripley. They had a little bit of a face-off. I was surprised at how much taller Rhea was. I don't know how tall her boots were compared to Vaquer's. Maybe that exaggerated it. But also Naomi, Julia, Roxanne Perez, and Alexa Bliss. When you look at Vaquer, Perez, and Julia, 3 out of the 6 are quite new to the main roster in the mix. You have Alexa Bliss, who had extended time off, and now she's in the mix. Naomi, fresh off a heel turn. And then Rhea Ripley, kind of like Seth Rollins, the singular established top act in that match. What do you think about the choices they made, Chris, to fill out this 6-person, this 6-woman match? And do you have any favorites or dark horses?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that 3 women who were in NXT maybe a month ago, 6 weeks ago, are in this match. I'm still trying to understand if they abolished the draft or you can just sort of show up on Raw and SmackDown. And I feel
I don't know what's going on.
The wrestlers who've been in NXT for years are probably annoyed. Like, how do they figure out a way to get out? But
yeah,
I think similar to the men's Money in the Bank, Rhea Ripley is the clear favorite in this match. But I feel unlike the men's, there's some other, I feel, better storylines. This one of the 3 new women to the main roster could be established with a victory here. So there's that. Naomi has turned heel, and this could help her in her heel, get some heel momentum. And then Alexa Bliss was out for quite some time. Justin and I were at the SmackDown in Dayton when she returned, which was only about a month ago. So I think there are more options there. So I think Rhea is the favorite, but I would be less surprised by anyone who won that match.
So in the chat, Sean Plichta says, let's bring it up. Oh, that's not it. There it is. Naomi or Vaquer would be where I would go. And Darrell says the pop Stephanie got every time she was seen on cam was very good for her and the build they can do with her. Chris Rucker says Naomi has to win. Sean says Rhea doesn't need a briefcase to walk around with. Azan said it feels like Naomi has the real thing going. Mark Biscetti says, God, I keep clicking the wrong ones here. Vaquer doesn't need to win. I want to see her on a journey without the gimmick. Alexa winning will pop the crowd. Rhea doesn't need it. And then Ryan Solorio says, I'm not flinching. Roxanne all the way. All over the place here, Chris, in terms of picks. I understand that. I don't think it's obvious who's going to win. I think you could imagine a storyline with any of them winning. You know, Bliss has been in Charlotte's face. That they could cross paths later this year with the Money in the Bank in play. Roxanne Perez, they're high on, and she has a lot of experience in NXT. Ripley, of course, the top star in this one. Vaquer, they could see that as giving her something real relevant to do. Naomi as a heel, it fit her really well, and she really has been impressive in her heel run. And then Julia is someone they, obviously feel like is someone worth investing in, and rightfully so. So I don't know. I mean, I'm all over the place on this one. I don't know what the odds are, but I wouldn't want to put money down on this with any confidence.
Yeah, and I think in a way that's much more appealing in the men's match because there are a lot of different ways that it could go, and not as many obvious run-ins, though it's WWE, so I assume there will be a run-in, but it's not as obvious as the men's match.
Yeah. Sean Plitz just says, I didn't love Rhea smiling so much with Stephanie. Her character is in such a weird place. And then Dan jumped in and said, yeah, Rhea was so much better at Judgment Day. Now she's still just floating. CJ LaChapelle says Naomi should win. What do you think is going on with Rhea Ripley's character, Chris? It's been a weird, the road to WrestleMania, now the fallout. I'm not quite sure how people are supposed to feel or ought to feel about her at this point, other than, you can be a fan of hers, but story-wise, I don't know if they built a strong, clear framework of why somebody new to the product, for instance, would be rooting for or against her.
I think that this is a weird analogy just popped in my head as you're asking this question, but she's almost, I think they put her in like late 90s WCW Ric Flair territory, or Ric Flair would be gone for whatever reason, and then he would just show up and people would love to see him. So he wouldn't need a storyline. He would just be Ric Flair. And I think for some time with Rhea Ripley in WWE, they thought, oh, she's such a big star. She doesn't need a storyline or a reason or, character consistency. She's just Rhea Ripley. and when she comes out, everyone will cheer. And I think she's been kind of hamstrung by not having a clear opponent. I think this is where sometimes in the women's division there's a struggle where if she, I'll pick someone like Naomi. Like if her and Naomi as a heel had a feud, it'd probably be better for her than being sort of floating around, kind of being teaming with Io Sky and not being interesting as opposed to having an opponent she can focus on. And this is where I think WWE, a lot of promotions struggle with women's storylines that don't involve the title. I think she needs a clear heel to wrestle for a few months, whether that's a champion or not, and that would get her back on track.
When it comes to Rhea and Roxanne and Vaquer, I'm sorry, let me clarify. Julia Perez and Vaquer, who's a bigger star in 2 years, Chris, and why?
I think Stephanie Vaquer is the biggest star between the three of them. I think I've seen Roxanne for a while. She was on Ring of Honor when I covered that a few years ago, my entry here into the Torch. And I always saw her as a babyface. She always, her nickname was a Prodigy, which is probably a tough nickname for a young wrestler. But, her as a heel, I'm still trying to grab onto it. Maybe she'll turn back as a babyface. That might be helpful. And I think just from their NXT experience, they arrived at the same time. But Stephanie Vaquer was a bigger star than Julia, and she's already, as one of the callers are chatted in. She's already getting pretty decent reactions for someone that's only been on the show for a couple weeks, and we've known over the years from people come from NXT, they don't always get big reaction just because they've been big stars in NXT when they come to the main roster. So when I heard that today, it made me think that she has something special. So I would go with her.
I'll break in just briefly to say on the flagship tomorrow, Jason Powell from ProWrestling.net scheduled to join me. We welcome your questions. You can respond to anything we're talking about on today's show or other topics, WWE, TNA, NXT, AEW, New Japan, indie scene, history, whatever. Everything's on the table. So that's the time.
OTAs. Okay.
But maybe not. Yeah, actually with Jason, that definitely can come up. So yes, give us or drop us a line. Email wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. If you listen to us on the podcast side of things on delay and you don't watch us live on YouTube and you don't participate in the chat, that is the way when you're watching Raw, Dynamite, or SmackDown to send us a note, a quick question, a comment, and we can include you on there. If you feel left out when we're reading all these people in the chat room, that is your way to be part of things. Okay, back to the chat. Definitely stirred some interest in Rhea Ripley and bringing her up. Kyle Fassel said they really derailed Rhea on the road to WrestleMania. And Goodfella 1422 says Seth and Rhea shouldn't even be in their respective matches here. JC Scooby went so far as to say Rhea has become off-putting. Mark Piscetti said Rhea lost her momentum on the build of WrestleMania. She could have been the top wrestler in the company. I thought coming into the year she'd be in a much better spot right now. Kyle Fassel said Rhea needs to be in a compelling story. Look at how much story has helped Naomi, Bianca, and Jade. They had something, and frankly, I still think they have more with Rhea than they do any of these other women. I mean, if Vaquer in her vignette, I didn't come away with watching that thinking, oh, somebody who isn't. I don't know. It came across like, here's my resume. I've been a big star outside of WWE, and here's what I look like. Here's what I sound like, but I didn't really get a sense of direction of what someone would go. That's why I root for her. And that's going to be the challenge, with Julia and Vaquer. They're trying to create a character for Roxanne. Obviously, they have a story going with her now that can help with Judgment Day. They're on a journey with her. But to me, Rhea is still just turnkey top star, and it has been a mess. Although CJ LaChapelle said, I really like Rhea, but that mommy on top line is getting old, in my opinion. Maybe she did get a little, started kind of just coasting's a word because she worked hard in what she did, but in terms of her gimmick, kind of leaned on something that was working. It's why I don't like Diffie Time being invoked all the time. I just think sometimes a wrestler can or Teddy DiBiase with his cartoon inauthentic laugh going back decades, like at some point be multidimensional. So I don't know. I mean, and Kyle Fassel says in chat, Stephanie has a cool factor, confidence, and an aura that makes you want to cheer her. Okay, fair enough. But it's going to be tough. Tougher with her than with Rhea, I think, to amplify that to the same heights that Rhea could get to, because I think Rhea has a cool factor, confidence, and an aura. and is more connected with the crowd and more of a track record. It's a good problem to have. I mean, I'm not trying to like diminish anybody being valuable. It's just why are they trying? I shouldn't say that they're trying. They're in a situation now where they had someone who was where you could, in a best case scenario, hope Julie or Vaquera or Roxanne ever be in Rhea, and it slipped. Yeah, Chris. So any thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is sort of just the thing with wrestling that you need to show is it comes out to storylines. And I feel, again, Rhea Ripley's already a star. Build up a heel and have her feud with her, and I think a lot of these problems will go away. Instead, her character's been very wishy-washy, and as someone pointed out, the WrestleMania didn't help. But as opposed to moving forward from that, it seems like they almost leaned into that even more, and so she's been off track even longer. I think for her to be honestly, the best thing is if probably someone not in the match would make more sense, cost her Money in the Bank, and they had a 3-month feud. That would probably get her on track more than anything else.
Yep. Let's see. Kyle just said, yeah, they slipped on Rhea. Shocking, really. Okay, let's move on. Sean Plichta has a super chat. Everyone's welcome to do super chats. Help support the show, pay the fees for the software to stream this show and everything else that goes into it. All the post-production. So we appreciate Sean doing that in addition to his VIP membership. He goes, have a thought. I really like what Kross is doing character-wise a lot, but I just don't think this will translate to the ring. What do you think? There are people who are really into Karrion Kross, Rich Fan, one of them, PWTorch columnist, podcaster. He's got this whole other world on social media that isn't part of WWE canon. I don't know how much you're following that, Chris, but tell me what you think about Kross and getting in wrestlers' heads, including now Sami.
I'm not following it on social media unless I don't follow him on Blue Sky. If he's on other social media, I don't follow him there either, so I wouldn't be aware. But if he's on the X thing, don't use that anymore. But I think, and also I think, again, we talk about this in a lot. Being on social media is great, but it needs to be on television for it to really, really resonate with the larger audience. I think that the question would be, he's kind of had these moments where it's looked like he's in the past has been, I jokingly call him almost like the devil on someone's shoulder, where he did that for Miz and Creed and a few other folks, but they haven't, necessarily given him the credit, or he's kind of moved on to other people. I think Sami Zayn, if he changed Sami Zayn's character, that would be maybe helpful to push him. But I think at this point, you can only convince people to do the wrong thing, them do it, and then they move on away from you without him being involved again. He doesn't get the credit. So, Sami Zayn didn't punch him. He's still not as concerned with him as he is with Seth Rollins and Bronson and Braun. So I think he needs someone to really be, AJ Styles was kind of like that for a while, but even he's moved on to go to Dominic Mysterio. He needs someone really focus on him more for it really to resonate with the largest audience.
What do you think about what they're doing with Sami Zayn? Karrion Kross is good. He's not, he's not great in the ring. He's not at WWE level. We're great in the ring, but in terms of character development, his character portrayal, his persona, I think it's compelling. He plays his part well now. He's done with the kind of the spooky scare girls at the haunted house voice and being more of just a guy getting in people's heads. And so, I'm intrigued by it, but I don't spend a ton of time thinking about it. But it's fun when a segment comes on, and hope it leads somewhere. I'm more intrigued with Sami Zayn. Sami's just a fantastic talent and such history, so good at just about everything he does. What do you think Sami's trajectory is here? Because he's talking about wanting a world title. He's in the opening segment today in a big way. They're giving him a lot of TV time. It's not filler. Like coming out when Punk's kind of finishing up and getting his face and saying, if you win, I'll be waiting for you. They have him in the top mix, and he has a history with Paul Heyman and the Bloodline. I don't know where it's going. I hear all kinds of speculation about it. I'm not convinced in any way, in particular, of where he's heading. Face, turning heel again, staying face, being whatever. There's all kinds of options within those realms too. Chris, what do you think about what they're doing with him and where they're going?
I think the elephant in the room is that if he really wanted to be a world champion, or he's got a shot at it, he could ask his really good friend to give him a shot, since they're both baby faces and they're very close. instead of the sort of circular logic of CM Punk, you need to win Money in the Bank and then win the title, and then I'll wrestle you. And it's like, why don't you wrestle Jey Uso? If Jey Uso beats Gunther, why don't you be his next opponent? It seems to be a lot easier, and there's actually a storyline you could get to between the two of them that's a lot less convoluted than what they're doing. But I think they're trying to set him up for in my opinion, a possible heel turn where for some reason he can't stand, whether it be Jey Uso as the champion or he hasn't got a shot and he maybe has to cut a corner or he has to do something else to get what he's always wanted. But I think there's a lot of intrigue in how they get there, and potentially Kross is the method to do that.
Yep. A couple chat comments coming in. Goodfella 1422 says, I like the Sami wrinkle. Is he really a jerk? LOL. CJ says, I've always been a fan of Sami. Sean says, I'm assuming the Sami heel turn is coming more and more. Durrell, though, says, I think it would take too much work to get Sami over as a heel. And right now you have problems getting people over as heels in the first place. Yeah, but Mark Biscotti says, hey, Sean, they're totally telling us he's turning. And Sean says, yeah, they are, and I'm intrigued. Mark Biscotti says Sami has gotten stale as a face. He needs a major character shakeup. So, yeah, anyway. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty interested in anything Sami does. And what he did in the Bloodline was so good. And I'm glad that they haven't just put him in some, mid-card slot that isn't still in the mix with top people. Whatever he does, I'm pretty intrigued with. Let's shift to CM Punk, the promo I mentioned that Sami interrupted. Coming out at the top of the show, he declared he wants to be world champion. He wants to hold the title again. Sami even noted it's the first time since he returned that he's spoken so plainly about his intent to be world champion.
Is that true? I thought he did like around Royal Rumble time when he challenged Cody and
that's a good. I think that's a fact. But I guess in the context of the Rumble, I want to win the Rumble. I want to win the title. I mean, this isn't all that different in Money in the Bank season, but nevertheless, he is clear. I mean, there's a reason we're talking about a Cody match and a Gunther match with Punk. So, I get, in Sami's defense, he did say it's the first time I've seen you speak so plainly about being in the world title mix. So maybe he was just unplain before, and now he's plain in Sami's view. But yeah, said it's a summer of Punk, and I talked about two people on top of the mountain. And if he faces Jey, he says it'll be business, not personal when he faces him. But with Cena, it will be personal. And he said, regarding Cena, I'm coming to pick your bones, you little bitch. And so, I mean, to me, this was, laying the groundwork mostly for Punk and Cena at some point, which seems like it has to happen, right, Chris?
Yeah, I think that they definitely want to get to that. I did call him versus Randy Orton, so I'm proud of myself for that. So I guess I'll call him and CM Punk as well.
What do you think about Punk's work as a character in 2025? Mark Biscotti says this feels like Phil Brooks playing CM Punk. This doesn't feel like a character like 2011 Punk, more like an old playing greatest hits, an old band playing greatest hits. How do you think Punk looks on the mic, connecting with the fans, in the ring as a wrestler? Obviously, he's still getting the big pops from crowds and CM Punk chants everywhere. He is over. It's work. He's more over than I thought he would be at this stage after his return. But, that came with a track record that he's overcome through some, discipline and obviously the support system of WWE and some good people in his ear. So, yeah, CJ LaChapelle says CM Punk is still great. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, CM Punk's like me, more gray hair than he had a few years ago, a little slower than it was a few years ago. But obviously, as you mentioned before, his crowd reaction is pretty great with, pretty much every arena they go to. I think that, people are saying, well, he's not angry or he's not like he was. I mean, he's mid 40s, maybe even late 40s, like happily married man. He's not going to be the same as he was 15, 20 years ago. I think that has to be taken into account. You can't be the angry young person forever. You burn out that way. I think he's come back in a different state from his time away and maybe from his time in AEW as well. And so I think he a lot of his character is, I have the greatest hits and I'll get to them. I have won Money in the Bank, but he won Money in the Bank they mentioned in 2008 and 2009, which seems so long ago. But the whole thing for him is his character is, yeah, I'm not, he doesn't say this, but yeah, I'm not, as fresh as I was before, but I have a track record that you all can believe in because I've done these things before, and I've come back to do it again. And I think that's actually shown some character progression than just him being the same. It's kind of one of the reasons why I can't take John Cena seriously wearing the same outfit he wore 20 plus years ago. It's kind of ridiculous. He's going bald, and so I think CM Punk is more believable in his character because he is a progression of where he was 2009, 2010.
Kyle Fessel says, I don't think Punk is believable. It doesn't seem like the real him. I'm used to being mad at life. I think he cashes those paychecks. Like you said, Chris goes home to his wife. He's at the later stage of his career. He's in a company that doesn't drive him nuts, that's professionally run. And he has the incentive to show up. Tony Khan and the Bucks in particular. He has a lot of incentive and a lot of reasons to not have that chip on his shoulder. And Vince McMahon's not running the company in a way he doesn't like. He and Paul Levesque seem to be on good terms. Like Sean Plitch just says he's being real and himself. And I like that. But yeah, I mean, there is an issue for people who want to relive what Punk did, like you said, a long time ago, Chris, now, when we look back. I mean, that's it. Time moves on. He's in a different spot than he was. As when Derek Mitchell points out, Punk cashed in against Edge in 2008. Jeff Hardy, 2009. Ryan Soloria says, what reason does Punk have to be angry at this point? All in storyline. It's all in storyline. And, if he doesn't have a pipe bomb promo to throw, he's not going to sit down on the stage and rant about Saudi Arabia or the support of Trump by top people in WWE and politics being injected and, on and on. And, all the ads all the advertisements on the ring, Vince McMahon didn't do that. He wanted, the ring was sacred. And now WWE's throwing all these ads all over the place. I mean, he's not going to, whatever, pick your thing that's different now. He can't do that. So he's just a character in a show at this point, and that's fine. Derek Mitchell said Wade is an NBA comp. Punk playing more minutes like Al Horford with the Boston Celtics. What do you think of that comparison, Chris? If you can,
I thought there would be NBA. There wouldn't be any NBA discussion on the post show today. But no, yeah. I think I would say in his prime he was better than Al Horford was. So I look at him more. I'm trying to think of like a best example. Russell Westbrook was bad at times in the playoffs, but he's kind of like almost like a Russell Westbrook, in which Russell Westbrook was an MVP and like a multi-time All-Star, and Russell Westbrook's going to the Hall of Fame, and now he's playing a role on the Jazz, sometimes good, sometimes bad. He's probably a little bit better in his role, CM Punk, than Russell Westbrook was at the time of the playoffs, but I think that might be a better comparison than Al Horford.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sean Plitch just says he's showing fire and character and bravado. He is so invested in what he's doing, and that's good. JC Scooby says Punk can still be vicious on the mic. It's like when he like having Rock have it. Danny Tuchito says, I thought my thoughts on Punk repeatedly saying he's going to win a major match and then not. The only thing he's promised to achieve and actually has is main eventing WrestleMania, and even that was in a roundabout way. Yeah, I mean, at some point there's going to be. Punk's going to either have to turn heel or win a big match or move down the card if he doesn't deliver, but that's fine. We'll get to the NBA and Michael Cole in a Pacer jersey and McAfee. And what about the timing of McAfee talking about the Pacers in Oklahoma when the Pacers are about to take on OKC in the finals? Chris, my Wolves, your Knicks. It's been a rough time since we both were on. That game one is going to haunt Knicks fans forever.
Actually, I'm going to say it's not. I'm going to say why. So this is a credit to actually former Timberwolves Karl Anthony Towns. The Knicks were about 5 minutes away from being swept in the series. The Pacers had a 20-point lead at the end of the third quarter, and the Knicks won, actually primarily because of the play of Karl Anthony Towns, which is a different conversation because he didn't play like that the entire series. So for me, Game 1 and Game 3 cancel out because a lot of teams don't lose.
Fair enough,
at that. And so taking those two out in the other 4 games, the Knicks didn't play well. And for me, as I said to someone earlier today, This is the furthest the Knicks have gone in the playoffs since 2000. Freshman in college, when I first sophomore in college, freshman year. I first met Rich and Justin. That's how long ago. No gray hair back then. The Knicks hadn't gone this far, and so I'm happy they have some roster tinkering to do. Minnesota probably as well, due to the Randall being a free agent, some other free agents. But as someone who has seen most of their teams not win a championship, bar the Yankees. Sorry to all the people who hate the Yankees out there. I know a lot of you do. I'm just glad the Knicks are relevant because I spent a lot of years. I was wearing a Jets sweatshirt with my teams being irrelevant. So I'm very excited to see that they were actually relevant.
I have a similar view on the Wolves. I mean, I honestly, I think Indiana's a better team than the Knicks this year, and the Thunder are a better team than the Wolves this year. I didn't know that until they played. That's why we played the games. I mean, the Wolves, from people close to Wolves, the Wolves thought they were better than OKC. They did well against them in the regular season, and they were on a roll. And it just turned out OKC is better, and Indiana's better, and that's going to be a hell of a finals series. And it's nice to see at least one of the number one seeds go to the top, and Indiana was number one seed if you start counting games January 15th or something. I mean, they really rose. I mean, they were a better team than Cleveland and Boston at the end of the season. So, yeah, I mean, the Knicks and Wolves have to do something to be able to compete against those two teams next year, and who knows how
more trades. Who else got traded?
I know. Yeah, I mean, it could. I haven't. This is the most I've talked about the Wolves since the buzzer rang on our being eliminated. I haven't listened to a podcast since then. I'm on a little break, but I'll dive back in when I can. Yeah. Anyway, that's enough NBA talk on our post show here. Let's bring on
Thunder up.
What's that?
I'm very heavily rooting for the Thunder in the finals.
Yeah, I understand that. There's something about rooting for the Thunder to decimate Indiana for me because it makes the Wolves look like if Indiana just comes in and plays them in 7 games like Denver did, it's like, well, the Wolves aren't in their level. But if Indiana just gets trounced by OKC also, it's like, well, the Wolves are really good. It's just OKC was just clicking in every way, at this peak part of the season. So if you get eliminated in the playoffs, unless you hate the opponent, like Indiana perhaps, for a Knicks fan, you kind of want to see the team that beat you win it all because then it means you might be the second best team. That's how we rationalize things here. Okay. We'll probably talk Michael Cole maybe we'll talk Cole and McAfee later. I don't know. We don't have to. But let's bring Jason D from Australia on for some conversation about the show. Jason D, always good to hear from you. What's in your mind about tonight's episode?
Yeah, thanks, Wade and Chris. I wanted to touch on the backstage interaction between Gunther and Jey Uso, and just the overall story they're telling within WWE. You go to SmackDown, and Cody Rhodes paid the price for not being a bad guy. He was a good guy, didn't take the cheap shot, and he paid the price. And the story they're telling with Gunther and Jey is that Jey being a good guy and being unselfish and being there for everyone, that's going to cost him too. And then you got Karrion Kross saying to Sami Zayn, as you guys touched on, that you need that. I know you're a bad guy and it's in you, and you kind of have to go down that route in order to succeed. So I find this fascinating that this is sort of an overarching story that they're telling. And I'm intrigued to see what they're going to do as far as the booking is concerned with Gunther and Jey. I can see Jey retaining, and the story that they're telling is that you can be a good guy and you can succeed. So, Jey has been a good guy. He's been helping out people. That's actually not going to wear him out, and he's going to prove Gunther wrong. Do you think that's what they're trying to say here? Because eventually we are going to get to Jey versus Sami, in my opinion, and that's going to be fireworks because they have a lot to refer to there. But just the overarching story that they're telling here, do you find it intriguing and the way they're going about it?
Well, Chris, just start with your prediction. Well, start with your thoughts on what Gunther said to Jey tonight, as Jason brought up. Ryan Solorio says Gunther sounded like he was talking to his son, LOL. And Sean Plitchta says, yeah, I like the backstage, but man, I'm worried Gunther's losing next week, but I don't want interference either. Jey just isn't doing much for me. So what do you think about the Gunther Jey back and forth? And then what do you think about next week's Raw main event? It's not often they build up a world title match this many weeks for Raw.
I had one question off the beginning. these two have had a really bad feud, and he was just able to walk into the locker room and sit next to him very calmly. I feel like wouldn't someone be concerned that they would get into a physical altercation? Putting that aside, I think the biggest issue I had with that wasn't what Gunther said, because that was he would say to Jey Uso in his character. It was Michael Cole saying, "Oh, Gunther's right." That to me is a bigger issue than anything Gunther did, because the commentator, the lead announcer, shouldn't be telling people that, hey, Jey Uso is stupid because he's helping his friends and being an honorable person, when all he should be doing is focusing on his world title and not that. And that's where, some of the commentary flaws come in, Pacer jersey or not, in that the commentator should reinforce good behavior. I mean, with Kross is a little bit different because he has done that with everyone or multiple people, so that's his character. Gunther isn't telling anything to Jey for anything other than for Gunther to get into his head for the title, to win the title. And Michael Cole shouldn't reaffirm that by saying he's right.
I like Gunther saying you cannot be a good person who's there for your friends and also serve this world championship in the way that it needs to be served. It sets up Jey when he loses, whenever that is, under whatever circumstance, next Monday or otherwise. It's because he's too good of a person. Now, that could also be a story arc. I don't think they're going to turn Jey heel, but I mean, they could play up the notion. Karrion Kross gets in his ear and says, Gunther was right. There's things they can play with as far as that story goes, but mostly it's just Gunther establishing his character, which is you have to be singularly focused and selfish to keep this title when somebody like me is coming after you, and I'll keep it with that attitude. And you can't. I think they can go either way with this. It wouldn't break my heart if Gunther won the title and Jey moved on to other things. There's a reason they're doing Gunther and Jey on Raw after Money in the Bank and advertising it ahead of time. It could just be they want to pop a little number, and it just made sense. But Jason, I mean, back to you. I could see scenarios in both directions. What makes you lean one way or the other, and what are the title defense options for both that makes you lean one way or the other?
Well, I could see Jey winning, because you would think that this is a babyface company, that they're trying to send the quote unquote right message. Now, to back up Chris's point about the commentary, when Cena defeated Cody at WrestleMania, Michael Cole was quite emphatic in saying that Cena did what he had to do because Ric Flair didn't get all his championships by not being the dirtiest player in the game. And that always struck me as so you had Wade Barrett defending, because this is sort of the similar thing here. You had Wade Barrett defending Cody Rhodes, but Michael Cole, the lead commentator, saying, no, Cena did what he had to do. And now they're so emphatic with Gunther. Look, you would have to think that the right message to send is that Jey Uso can do this. Like, you can be a good person, you can look out for your friends, and also focus on yourself too. Like, this is not just a blatant, binary decision. You have to pick one or the other. You can be a good person, look after your friends, and you can be focused on your own thing. I would like to think that's the message that they're trying to send here. I'm not that they're trying to send a message to the audience, but you would think that's the traditional way to tell the story. But having said that, to back up what Gunther, you can understand where Gunther's coming from. So do we want to see the babyface overcome the odds and prove the bad guy wrong? Or is Gunther right, saying, no, you have worn yourself out and I'm going to beat you? And that's the more intriguing story to tell. That's where I'm kind of thinking. So kind of got two defenses there, like you said, Wade.
Chris, what do you think to what Jason just said?
Yeah, I agree. I think as fans, or at least I'll speak for myself, we kind of want the baby face to overcome, be able to be all things to all people, be the good friend, and also be the champion. But I think the reason why it maybe lacks in its clarity getting over with the overall audience is the fact that the commentators are not saying that's important. Like, the most important thing is winning the title. If you have to cheat, you don't have to cheat to win, but if you want to win and you need to cheat, that's fine. And I think generally that hurts an issue. I mean, I don't like the commentary on Raw very much for various reasons, but this is an example of it. It hurts the storylines, it hurts the characters without the commentators having, consistency and continuity of why people should act a certain way and why we should feel about people because they act a certain way. And I think these two can get away with it because of their history, but overall, it's a bad tenor for the for the program as a whole.
And I mean, I have concern about Gunther. Jey is at a peak right now, and it's not sustainable for years. You're not gonna be world champion 2 years from now or a year from now. But this is a fun interlude or chapter to tell. But to me, Gunther isn't more of a priority. I mean, Gunther, there's a lot more to do with him, and there's some concern, among people in the chat. Sean Plitchta says Gunther can't lose to a guy like Jey multiple times. Gunther's a star. They can't have him lose, and he shouldn't turn face yet. But Ryan Soloria says a story in every match Jey had with Gunther is that he gets more confident. Now Jey should be Gunther's equal. And he says that hype package for Gunther and Jey got me hyped. To me, I would be more concerned with, and I hesitate as I say it because I think Jey is super popular, and I think you should ride this out if it fits all the other things, all your other considerations well. You can ride it out and get more out of Jey as champion. But also, if it ends Monday, I think it was a good run, and it makes people believe in underdogs having a 6-month title reign, roughly, give or take in the future. But Gunther's still my priority. Derek Mitchell says, Wade, does Gunther remind you of Dory Funk Jr., Jack Briscoe, and Nick Bockwinkel as a dignified, articulate wrestler who are very matter-of-fact in their promos, but singly focused on the world title? Yes, totally. I mean, he is a throwback. Gunther would have headlined any of the territories in the late 70s into the 80s, or any time in the 60s and 70s for that matter. So to me, Gunther is a top guy. He's not young in wrestling years, but he's young in WWE main event years. And there's so much more you can do with him as a heel and then eventually as a babyface. Gunther as a babyface against a heel Braun Breaker in a WrestleMania main event seems like it, might happen 2 years from now. So to me, Gunther's still my top priority, but I think you can still do more with Jey without sacrificing Gunther, but they have to tell the story right. What you don't want is Gunther to be the guy who loses and then sort of says, well, sometimes you lose, or has an excuse. Like at some point you need Gunther to show he is more dominant than he is an excuse maker or someone who comes up short in big matches. And that is, I think, the concern of Gunther fans right now. Jason, back to you.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Because say if Gunther does lose, it could prove to be a transitional point for his character where he realizes that maybe his way of thinking is wrong. And then you slowly morph him into the baby face. But then is that too early to do that? Like, I'm not saying what I think, what I want. I'm just trying to, like I said, that the breadcrumbs that they're laying here. So that would make sense. That Jey proved Gunther wrong, and that maybe Gunther just needs to lighten up a little bit, and it's just not all about the way that he thinks about things, like he sees the light, because we have seen him interact a bit with Seth, interact with Logan Paul. Are they teasing, and even with Pat McAfee, right? He showed him the respect. Are they teasing a slight turn in Gunther's character where he becomes now the badass that people actually respect and that they want to cheer? Because you get the feeling that he's earned so much respect from the crowd that they would be willing to go along with him. And you put him up against a Logan Paul, the crowd would love for him to beat the crap out of Logan Paul and for him to shut him up. Yeah. So, yeah.
Jason, they are intrigued with Gunther as a babyface. I mean, they are. They're showing it, but it's not time yet.
Correct. Yes. I agree.
But, I mean, he's losing his big matches. He wins most of his big matches. He had a super long title reign, but, it's sort of like Drew McIntyre. Sometimes you get defined down when you're against top people and you never win, or you lose more than others. And, Sami and Cody and Jey were losses for Gunther, and especially the Cody one, stands out. So I don't know. I mean, but I love having him on the chessboard of Paul Levesque's booking. I mean, he's not a clear established top guy, but he's right on the verge of it. And I look forward to the booking taking him there. Chris, anything more you want to add on this?
My only caveat with some of the comments would be, is there a storyline for Gunther that's more intriguing than Sami and Jey Uso at this time? I think it probably would have made more sense to keep Gunther away from the title for a bit longer. I thought that's what they were doing with the Pat McAfee feud than something else, but I guess we'll see next week.
Jason, what else for us?
Yeah, so with Sami and Jey, I mean, for me, and I think for most people, that is the most... like a hell of an intriguing story with their background. What does Jey need to have the championship in order for Sami to go for it? Or can Jey lose the championship and that feud can still take off because Jey never gave Sami an opportunity, you know, like, and Jey could say, look, all you have to do is ask. Because remember, that's what Hogan said to Andre, you know, like, all you have to do is ask. You didn't have to go down this path of getting involved with Bobby the Brain Heenan and doing what you're doing. What's the more intriguing way to get there? Because Sami has so much fuel. Look, storyline-wise, Sami's the one that's always been in Jey's corner. He's the one that pushed him to get out of the bloodline. He's the one that showed him how that to see his true talent and that he could do this. And if Sami doesn't get rewarded with a title shot, or if Sami loses to Jey and he thinks that, you know, it should be him who deserves it because without Sami, Jey wouldn't have got where he got. That's where the money is. This is where this is such an intriguing story. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how they get there. But does it need the championship or can they get there without that?
They've talked so much about Sami wanting to win the world title. It's hard to imagine it meaning as much without the world title. I mean, that's a simple answer, but they can do it without the world title. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think it would make sense the most with the world title, or else why would they wrestle? What would be the reason for them to wrestle if it's not about the title? Jason?
Well, they would only wrestle if Sami snaps and wants to get his revenge on Jey. You know what I mean? Like, that's the only way they would. But I'm talking about the story that they tell here because, I mean, the way I see it, I could see, you know, Sami challenging Jey in like a gentleman type of match and may the best person win, you know, brother versus brother, Oos versus Oos. But, you know, Jey defeating Sami clean and Sami not being able to take that he's just simply not the better man. And he can't, and it's almost like he would think that maybe Jey would take it easy on him because Jey's had his moment and maybe Sami deserves his. Like, because you got Karrion Kross in the background putting this in Sami's head, you know, this is where I think they could tell a really intriguing story. So I'm intrigued to see where they go with this because this has got money written all over it and the passion of the promos and what they can use over the past 2 to 3 years. This would get the fans really involved and it would make Sami like a big time heel because he would be throwing everything back at Jey.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and I guess with just more of a, I know you don't tend to like this, but just more of like a big picture question regarding R-Truth. You know, it's interesting, Wade and Chris, when we talk about like the phrase like drawing money, like, does this wrestler draw money? Well, realistically, with the WWE right now, obviously they've got their money secured with Netflix and their other TV deals, events are selling out. The only true way to see if a wrestler's drawing money is really through their merchandise, right? You can tell with the merchandise. And also, I would think if a fan is saying that if I go to an event and I don't see this person, am I disappointed? Like, who am I going to genuinely see? And R-Truth is one of those people. Like, people go to events to look forward to seeing what R-Truth does. And you can't say that about a lot of wrestlers. There are a lot of wrestlers that you can either take it or leave it. The fans are a bit ambivalent to. Like, if they're not on the card, it doesn't really matter. But if R-Truth isn't there, I think people are disappointed. So it surprises me that they would let him go simply because he is that wrestler that people look forward to. And there's no other real metrics you can use these days besides merchandise. And I believe his Ron Cena's T-shirt was selling well. And also just genuine interest to see that person. So that's why it surprises me.
Yeah, he's 53. He doesn't wrestle that much. He's a novelty comedy act on the lower card. They're not going to give him a $400,000 downside wrestler contract when they're not doing house shows and he's not going to be on PLEs anymore. They just gave him the peak match with Cena and a blow-off match after that. I mean, I don't know. I don't think they're the bad guys in this. They're just like the precedent of paying him whatever they were paying him as a wrestler contract. It just doesn't fit what they want from him going forward. And they didn't let him go. They just said, we're not going to give you the deal that we gave you when you were in your 40s. We're looking at you differently. I think it sounds like they could have communicated better to him. You know, there's a role for you here. Let's talk about it. I don't know all the details on that, but just because there's reporting out there that all his friends are freaking out. I mean, that wasn't my experience in contacting friends of his and people in WWE. You know, I mean, it's just they're like, well, he's 53. Why would he have a wrestler contract again? It's coming due. You got to have that talk. And then he went on social media and probably didn't do himself a huge favor, you know, doing it that way. But I mean, the framing of the initial reports on it, I think, inflamed things more than the circumstance pretty obviously called for.
Well, then the messaging had to be better then, and maybe even
I agree with that.
Him. There may be even from him when he put out the initial post
I agree
saying,
with that.
I'm not going to be renewed.
Yep.
And it got fans upset. But
Jason, if we separate the initial reporting and that's stoking, social. I mean, it's social media. There's going to be a pocket of people who go bonkers and crazy over stuff. It doesn't mean they're right. Doesn't mean they're wrong. It's just by definition that's going to happen either way. And you have his tweet, which felt like you'll never see me again. It was kind of the undercurrent. I mean, yeah, everything was handled poorly, but if you strip all that away, and someone said, "Oh, R-Truth is 53, and we're not gonna give him another wrestler contract that'll take him into his late 50s." I mean, no one would think that was controversial. So, I don't know. I mean, I think he'll still be on WWE TV unless he gets paid a lot by Tony Khan, and I think this will be mostly a 4-day story.
Well, okay, if that's the case, then that's fine. If he's still on TV interacting and doing those backstage skits, which people look forward to, and he always gets the reaction, then the messaging should have been framed differently. But
they didn't message. The messaging
the wrestlers
privately.
Didn't help either. The fellow wrestlers acted like that he's gone forever, like it was all heartbreak and all this.
The reporting indicated that some wrestlers were saying that. I haven't found one.
On social media, everyone was saying, all the wrestlers, and I'm hardly on social media, but you could tell one after another was like, "Can't believe that you're such a good guy." It was acting like he was gone.
That's exactly. That's the problem, is the messaging from Truth and from the way WWE handled it, and then obviously just the social media reaction made it out to be a bigger deal than it should have been and could have been. But I mean, the people in WWE don't dislike him. Like, this wasn't like they're not shoving him out the door, they're not booting him out the door. They're just like, it was simple as, we're not giving you a wrestler contract anymore. We don't see that you're going to be wrestling for us regularly. I think everybody's overreacting, and the people who I talk to who have level heads about this stuff are just like, yeah, this will blow over, but it's not. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know what more I can say about it.
I see what you're saying. It's obviously this whole thing could have been handled differently with the messaging.
I'm not denying that there aren't people who this gets into something I don't like talking about, which is I think there's a lot of people earning a living in this business who don't understand this business. Honestly, I just there's a bunch of people who think their success is defined on their social media followers instead of and this is awesome chance. It's just like the fact that there's a bunch of young or veteran, I don't know. Like I said, it's just that's a whole other topic, Jason. But the fact that there's people who are reacting to this in a way that is so driven by social media outrage for 72 hours before everybody moves on. I don't want to, I've been around too long to get into that stuff. I don't think it's important. I think it's ephemeral. I think it's silly. And I don't think it shows real perspective on what the business is about. And that's just sort of, but that's a broader topic. So I don't get wrapped up in people overreacting and getting swept up in the wave of, I need to be outraged for 24 hours over something.
Yeah, I think how I first myself saw it is that I saw something pop up, I think, on my Facebook page. And I think part with the messaging, it wasn't Truth. R-Truth gave the first message and people reacted to that as opposed to WWE making an announcement. But again, there's been this sort of thing now with a lot of people focused on when wrestlers leave WWE and how. And I think because he's been there for a very long time, because there's a certain perception of WWE, whether rightly or wrongly, it kind of went into a different way. And we'll see how it goes going forward. But I think, honestly, what wrestling fans should focus on more than an R-Truth in particular that Wade talked about is WWE is removing house shows, and they're taking away that experience away from fans, especially in smaller cities, because they don't make them enough money. I think that's going to lead to an erosion of wrestling fans over time. And this is an example of that. That's bigger than R-Truth or any other wrestler being released, is that, just as an example, Raw's coming to Columbus in a couple weeks, and my 6-year-old daughter, I would probably take her to a WWE house show in which she saw someone like R-Truth or Carlito. She'd probably be amused by them. Am I going to take her to a Raw that starts at 8 o'clock with CM Punk or Seth Rollins or Paul Heyman talking for 20 minutes? It's not going to work. Yeah. I think generally not just WWE, is an AEW, TNA, other promotions becoming entirely TV products hurts a segment of certain fans, how they got into wrestling. And I think that's something they need to explore. But of course, the house shows won't make as much money. but that to me is a bigger issue.
Yeah. All right, Jason, anything else you want to bring up?
No, that's an interesting point Chris has raised. The only thing I was saying, Wade, is that just as a TV character, R-Truth is more over than a lot of other people they have there, which are just not getting reactions.
Totally, but they are in the business of giving TV time to people who they think can draw money by wrestling. In
what way? That's what I'm saying. In what way do they draw? By how do you draw money?
They don't yet, but you can if you give. I'm not anti-Truth getting TV time, but to counter the argument you're saying, if Truth has TV time, it's displacing somebody else who actually might have a 25-year future, and they don't know who those people are going to be until they give them a chance to get TV time and get themselves over. And Truth can still be on TV as often as he has been, but without an antiquated, inapplicable, bad-fitting wrestler contract for hundreds of thousands of dollars a year when they can call him and have him show up every once in a while. That's the stage he's at. Maybe he thought he'd have
right.
Yeah. So, I mean, this wasn't handled well. I think WWE's learning a lesson from it. And they probably should have said to Truth, "You're great. We love you. We want you to be part of the family, but we need to work a contract that's different than the one that you had. Please don't go on social media and say we're firing you because we're not. You have a contract that's coming to an end." And I mean, he might have done some harm. I'm not in his head for this, but I mean, I think we're repeating ourselves now.
All right. Moving on then, just quickly, with the conversation with Rhea Ripley, I agree with you guys. She lost momentum going into WrestleMania with that Io Sky Bianca Belair three-way. But having said that, in fairness, if Bianca doesn't get injured, I think we see something really big there between her and Bianca Belair. So maybe Rhea's just sort of treading water at the moment. They feel like she's always going to get the big pops. Even when she comes on screen, she gets that massive star reaction. So maybe they're just waiting for Bianca to come back and they can move back into that. So that's what I'm hoping. But like you said, Wade, she did lose a bit of momentum character-wise. It seemed to be a bit wishy-washy with her intentions with Io and Bianca. She didn't come across too likable. But her star power and the fact that the fans love her, that's undeniable. So you got to be careful with that you still cross your T's and dot your I's with that character, even though it's a big star. But I'm waiting for Bianca to come back and for them to pick up that story. So maybe she's just treading water at the moment. Yeah,
I mean, I think she is, and I don't think they've completely lost faith in her, but it's not great that you go through a spell of, I thought the first Netflix show should have been built around, we have this new star, Rhea Ripley, who's going to, be a household name. And instead it was about old guys, being featured and whatever, extinguishing hot storylines. And I don't know. I think a mistake was made, and I would find a way to adjust to make her seem relevant, like as big of a star as Triple H felt going into his Hall of Fame. But all right. Anything else, Jason?
No, good conversation. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.
Thanks. Anything you want to add on that, Chris?
No. Take care, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
He's a Pacer fan, so I wanted to get off the phone. Okay.
Kyle Fassel said the Netflix debut of Raw feels so weird now. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to JB's email. He said, JB from Detroit. Punk seems to be the only person keeping the idea of John Cena selling his soul to The Rock alive. I'm certain that we'll have to see Cena Punk before Cena calls it quits. Well, Cody kept it alive on Friday because he said that offer still stands. It's an open offer. I mean, I think that was a key moment for Cody. He didn't have to say that, and he made it sound like, I can take that offer anytime. That maybe Cody's looking at a heel turn in 3.5 years, and that offer is going to be there 3.5 years from now, or it might be. But yeah, bottom line, I think we're going to see Cena Punk before the end of the year, right, Chris?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's one of the few matches that they have, but maybe they have it after Cena loses the title.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, it sort of gets to what is Punk fighting Cena for, but I think Punk and Cena can have a compelling feud even if Cena's already lost the title. If they don't want Punk to end Cena's reign, but they don't want Cena to beat Punk before then. I don't. Sean Plitch just says, Punk better not lose to Cena. I don't want to see Cena low blow Punk and score him 1, 2, 3. I mean, that would be ridiculous. All right. Also from JB from Detroit, Carlito taking the PS5 with him was pretty funny. Sami has been going so hard as a cheerleader to Cody and Punk. He said Sami and Punk. Or Jey, maybe he means Jey and Punk. Anyway, that makes me feel like a heel turn is coming at some point shortly. I feel Sami has been doing the stuff with Kross for months now. We covered that. Stephanie meeting Rhea in a backstage segment this week was definitely foreshadowing. I could see this as a big Mania match in the not too distant future. Stephanie pulling double duty on Saturday is interesting. I think that it speaks to what the company sees in her. Yeah. WWE just throwing AAA talent on the screen feels like early AEW during Forbidden Door season. Absolutely. Chris, what do you think about the hype for Worlds Collide? And hey, here's Laredo Kid, and here's this person doing a move, and here's this person doing a move, and here's this person who's a son of a legend. It's a lot to throw at people. What do you think of the execution, the strategy, and the execution of it at this point?
I thought it was awful. I thought it was terrible. There are few things I believe less than, and maybe I could be incorrect, that Michael Cole and Pat McAfee are big AAA fans. I think it would have been very helpful to, if you're not going to bring all the AAA wrestlers out there, have some of the wrestlers that are employed by WWE talk about their matches. You could have Chad Gable, who's not El Grande Americano, of course, talk about how excited he is to have this match against Vikingo. I think for people who don't watch AAA or not familiar, this was a horrible way to really tell people about it. And we'll see if it's on YouTube, so it's not the same as definitely watching, paying for a pay-per-view or even a Peacock subscription. But yeah, I don't think the introduction was really good. They probably should have focused on a few people and had promos that were more clear than just Michael Cole trying to read a bunch of different names.
Trying. Why do they subtitle Julia? Her English is fine. Any thoughts, Chris, on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but
young people today just turn on closed captioning for everything when they watch TV shows. Now that's just an option. I mean, it's a thing you do so you don't miss lines. But I mean, I don't think it's anyone with an accent or who's new. I guess they're just trying to make sure it comes across. It's selective, so but it seems borderline at this point because she is doing pretty well. Jey Uso is in legitimately 3 different views right now. I'm usually in favor of having interwoven stories, but this might be a bit too far even for me. Well, I think the Gunther thing, one way or the other, is done Monday, so I think that's fine. Is every Raw going to end like this for the foreseeable future? As always, love the show and go VIP. I mean, at least with the triple threat matches, like anything goes. So it's like you can't have a cheap no contest or no DQ finish because anything goes in a triple threat match because of 3 people. Doesn't make sense to have any rules, apparently. I don't know. I mean, I would like to see Raw have some better finishes to their big matches.
Yeah, I feel like every match today had a run-in, and every match had this sort of feeling of I'm waiting for someone to show up, and everything before then doesn't matter. I think that's an issue. That was an issue on today's show.
Yep. We talked about that at length a couple weeks ago on the Raw Post Show 2-3 weeks ago. And, you condition your audience to just disinvest in everything up until something else happens. And they're just doing it at a higher density and a higher profile situation too often these days. All right. I'll wrap up with just a few random comments. And then, Chris, you can certainly offer a topic if we haven't covered it that you want to bring up. What do you think of Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker as a team? Speaking of the ending to Raw.
I like them. They look like they're 2 guys you wouldn't want to mess with, which is what they're doing. So yeah, I thought they looked pretty good. Yep.
I like Bronson Reed. I mean, he seems to have a different confidence to him right now in his body language. After, especially in the post-match angle or beatdown, he's carrying himself like he's got confidence that he belongs in this top mix. And you got to have that. People will, if you don't look like you believe in yourself, people won't believe in you. And he looks like he believes in himself right now, and he ought to. What do you think of New Day on commentary before they got kicked out for merely standing up? It's a little weird. They were in commentary for the War Raiders versus JD McDonough and Finn Balor match.
I mean, I think good for them. It's a bad sign that people who can't hear them are chanting "they suck" more than actually watching the match. I mean, it shows that they're over to a certain degree, but they were not as interested in the match itself. On our show, we talk about run-ins all the time. I thought it was a bit ridiculous that they got ejected for standing up after they were attacked by the War Raiders while the referee watched
I know.
Push Hansen off the top rope and told her, no, don't do that. In the same match, just no continuity.
Sloppy. Yep, it's sloppy. AJ Styles, Paul Heyman interaction just felt like it was just sort of there for show, just to add a little something to the main event. But they could revisit that. The Rusev vignette and Sheamus, they talked about their history. Sheamus says he was the best man at my wedding. Rusev said it'll be an honor to take him off the field. He says, to Sheamus, how dare you mistake the man that I was for the force that I now am. I don't know. I mean, I think they're doing a decent job. Sheamus just going, I bully bullies. I mean, little turnaround from his reputation, fair or unfair, early in his career. What do you think about Sheamus and Rusev and how they promoted that tonight?
I had two thoughts. One, I like setting up a match like this that's not going to be like a main event on a PLE, but you will build interest for a couple weeks. That was good. I kind of got the gist of it. They didn't say this exactly. Was that Rusev was mad at Sheamus because he went to AEW and he didn't stop him?
Yep.
It seemed to be that. And
there's a weird subtext to everything about his AEW.
To attack him. Also, I did text Torch contributor, my good friend Rich Fan, if he watched Raw today. He did not, because I thought he would like the Sheamus football coach pep talk to Natalya and Maxine Dupree about being a tag team and Azira Tozawa, which was interesting. But yeah, I did like the idea that Sheamus, again, from the Jey Uso school of trying to be a good guy, trying to talk people up, make them feel good about themselves, but also willing to bully bullies.
Sean Plichto with a super chat. Thank you, Sean, so much. Is there any way we could do one full tag team division with just one championship? The same teams are wrestling every week. I mean, this is a strategy, Chris. It's chaos. There's everybody everywhere. I mean, SmackDown has a deeper, more vibrant mix right now than the War Raiders and New Day and Balor and McDonough. But the idea of having a tag team that's sort of the cream of the crop, the clear top team, almost a Roman Reigns-esque reign, and just Raw and SmackDown are scrambling constantly. Or tag teams on Raw and SmackDown are scrambling constantly. The wrestling I grew up with, the established tag teams who only wrestled tag teams, but then you also had singles wrestlers teaming up when they weren't in the world title picture and a grudge one-on-one feud. And I think they could do more of that. And I think the tag division could be booked much better if you just had a really strong, dominant tag team on top. I'm not picking who that should be at this moment. But, the Street Profits would work because they kind of want to be, I'm sort of picking as an option. They're sort of not clear heels or faces. They could just be the best of their era and travel from Raw to SmackDown to PLEs and NXT sometimes and just defend against whoever rises for that month or that quarter. What do you think of Sean's question and anything that I said about it?
Yeah, I think generally, as I think lamented a few times when I've co-hosted with you, the downfall of tag team wrestling in the last 20 years or so has been very upsetting to me. I think I would love that to happen, but the problem is I don't think they're going to put a tag team in that kind of position to be dominant with all the things that you would need between promo time and lengthy match time. So I think that unfortunately isn't going to happen, but I hold out hope. One of my favorite DVDs I used to watch when I used to plug in my DVD player was the tag team WWE that they put out about 15 years ago. So I'm hopeful, but I doubt it'll happen.
Got some comments in the chat about Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria. I'd feel bad if we didn't bring that up. Chris, what'd you think of what we saw from Lyra? What do you think about her? Is she progressing on the mic? Is she getting more over? I mean, she doesn't have innate off the chart instant charisma. That's established. But I think there's something there that's likable. And I think she's finding a voice. And I think Becky, you can disagree with her being a heel, but I think she's good at portraying a heel version of herself opposite of Lyra. So I'm on board with what they've been doing right now. What do you think?
I give Lyra credit for withstanding the what chants, which I was very annoyed they were happening. I thought we moved on from that, but I guess not. Though it was weird because they were whatting her, and then when she said, "Oh, let's fight here tonight," the crowd all cheered. It's all kind of weird to me. But yeah, I think she's doing a really good job. I think she's being in a little bit of a tough spot just because Becky Lynch is so over and she's kind of new, but I think she's progressing fairly well each week.
Sean says Lyra's getting better every week. Lyra has reasons because Becky's being a jerk, but she did go a little crazy tonight. Derek Mitchell says, I like Becky's promo tonight. It felt Lyra wasn't that likable, in my opinion. Darrell says, I like the Becky video promo. I think it was good and helped the story. Dwayne says, I think Becky is speaking more truths than Lyra. So, yeah, I mean, I think Becky is, to me, if I'm just an average person watching, I think Becky is coming across as the heel. You know, I mean, when she says, I think Lyra wanted an excuse to hate me because she wants to replace her, and then Lynch just snaps defensively. You can't do that. Nobody can. It's how she says what she says that makes her more of a heel. And I kind of like the raise the arm thing. I mean, I like when it's not, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to burn your house down. It's like the pride of sports. You got to raise my hand if I beat you. Like, keep it simple. Keep it within the realm of sports. People can care about that stuff if you tell that story effectively. So I'm a fan of that in principle, and I think this has been a good version of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Chris, anything else from tonight's show you want to bring up?
No, I think we talked about pretty much everything.
Yeah, I think we're pretty close to everything. So everybody, go VIP. If you want to hear what we do when we're not doing the free shows, you can go to Patreon or Spotify and search PWTorch VIP. That's PWTorch VIP in Spotify or Patreon. Get a 7-day free trial. You can also search PWTorch or in Apple Podcasts, in the native Apple Podcast app. And a charcoal gray logo pops up. It says PWTorch VIP. You can click on that, get some free samples, but also upgrade using your Apple account and get a 3-day free trial, unlocking all the VIP shows. You can also get a full VIP membership at pwtorch.com/govip, and that unlocks a crazy amount of wrestling history, wrestling journalism, pre-internet, pre-podcast era, long-form Torch Talks with some of pro wrestling's biggest names dating back to the late 1980s, transcripts of those, hard-hitting editorials, coverage of every SummerSlam, on and on. Backstage tidbits in the Newswire section. You can just crawl through and march through our back issues. Or if you're not into history, we got tons of current stuff going on that on the VIP side of things, on the podcast side, and with columns that you won't find anywhere else, exclusive columns from Greg Parks, Sean Radican, Alan Cunahan, Rich Fan, me, others. Go VIP, pwtorch.com/govip. That includes a customizable RSS feed compatible with Apple Podcasts and other podcast apps on Android and Apple or iOS. So you can break it down by show or by clusters of shows, history shows versus current event shows, just pay-per-view roundtables, whatever. There's so much cool stuff. We're adding content all the time. Check it out, pwtorch.com/govip. It is a recurring monthly membership or annual membership that I hope you'll feel good about. It's, you're supporting us in a way, a local small business. We're not on your street corner, but we are a small business. We're not owned by a big corporation sending you a bunch of SEO BS, just trying to get clicks. We don't clickbait. We don't blow stories out of proportion. At least I take pride in that being true. Hopefully it is. And we just try to put perspective on things. And if you like our approach to wrestling and you made it this far into our podcast or YouTube show, you can support a small family-run business that's been doing this for 30 plus years by putting your money where your positive thoughts about us are. pwtorch.com/govip. Our PWTorch VIP members are what makes everything come together with everything we do. And I thank our VIP members, and I know everybody at the Torch does, for making it possible to do all of this and produce all the podcasts that we do. It is a lot of hours that goes into putting the content out that we do, and it's a full-time job for multiple people, and we'd love for you to show some support for what we do. And of course, we're not asking for charity because you get a lot in return. pwtorch.com/govip. Chris, thanks again. We'll talk to you soon, and probably be more NFL talk before NBA talk.
Definitely. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, chat, as always. Always great having just a great group of people in the chat. And if you're listening to us on the podcast side of things, you're always invited to watch us live on YouTube. Just search PW Torch or find the link to the live YouTube shows in my TV reports at pwtorch.com or pwtorchvip.com. All right, the flagship's tomorrow, so send your questions, Wade Keller Podcast at gmail.com for Jason Powell and me. And then I'll be by Wednesday night covering AEW Dynamite. I'll be back in the host chair this Wednesday.